Oh, my goodness. I kept messing up this morning. Please accept my apologies, everyone. My name is Chris. I am getting the pleasure to announce Miss Patty Carson as our speaker this morning. We're going through the book called Little Things That Matter, and just love Patty as a person, love her as a leader. She has been recognized nationally in lots of different ways, but one of my favorite is Work From Home magazine. They featured her and her family and come out and took all kinds of photos and asked her story, and it was just really a neat thing to see her get honored that way. She's built a large organization and helped lots of people have success from home, and just really excited to hear from her this morning. So with that, Patty, I'll finally turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the introduction, and I kind of laughed when I heard that this morning because you'd wonder why. But, you know, it's funny, like when we get these chapters and the little things matter, we're on chapter 62. It's called The Dark Side of Sarcasm. I almost called Chris and said, you got to do this one because it was like fit right up my alley, and a lot of them do. So I'm going to kind of read it and then go through some stories. And anyway, Todd Smith wrote this book. And anyway, it says, your day at work starts with a coworker talking loudly on his phone to his girlfriend. When he hangs up, someone says, I think you should talk a little louder next time. The entire office didn't hear the details about last night's date. Though it's often camouflaged as humor, sarcasm is really a convenient way to express criticism, disapproval, or hurt feelings without saying what's actually on your mind. An occasional off-the-cuff remark can easily escalate to inappropriate and offensive conversational style. The word sarcasm comes from the ancient Greek word meaning to tear flesh. And a few decades ago, sarcastic remarks were called cutlows. Both the origin of the work and the slang expression illustrate the potentially damaging effects of sarcasm and reinforce my belief that sarcasm does not belong in our social and business interactions. Unfortunately, sarcasm is all around us. Television sitcoms, often loaded with sarcastic remarks, are intentionally written for you, the viewer, to laugh at the character's embarrassment, and don't be fooled into thinking that these are merely clever sayings mouthed by quick-witted individuals. Television writers think they are entertaining the audience, but they are really setting an example for viewers to follow. And sadly, our children grow up believing that they can risk of alienating another person in the interest of getting a laugh is socially acceptable. One might argue, sarcasm is okay with good friends. Life doesn't have to be so serious. Anyway, they know they're just joking. I say, why take the chance? You never know the impact your words might have. What you think is an innocent poke may hit them at the wrong time and having a negative effect. It's a risk that I'm unwilling to take, he says. Although an occasional sarcastic remark might seem harmless, remember that people judge your character every day by what you say and how you act, and the collective result of those judgments is your reputation. Let me urge you to have courage to say what you really mean. In the earlier example, a person who values relationships would privately say in a caring way, hey, I just want you to know that everyone could hear your conversation. If you were the one who spoke so loudly, would you respect, who would you respect more? I won't sugarcoat it. Sarcastic speech is a very difficult habit to break once you've allowed it to be part of your communication style and personal brand. And it's especially tough if the people around you thrive on the temptation of one-upping each other when it comes to sarcastic comments. The truth is, sarcasm breeds sarcasm. And like I said, this one just really hit home. And, I want to throw my husband under the bus, but he could win a Grammy Award on sarcasm. And he's like really good-hearted. And if I didn't know that, that would be a big thing. But, where it's like when you do it, it becomes a habit and becomes who you are. And, sometimes when I'm on social media, I'll be hashtag funny farm. Well, I really don't say all the euphemisms and things that actually happen at our house where I got that thing, because it's craziness sometimes because of my husband, his comments and stuff. And, I've learned how to take it. But exactly what they said, it's like sometimes our family, he's done it our whole entire marriage. We've been together around, over 45 years dating since I was 14. And I got used to it, I remember when we went to our marriage counseling, they asked us what you loved about him. And, I didn't really think it was sarcasm. I was like, his quick humor, I would find it funny. But, as you deal with it a long time, it doesn't feel like humor, and I remember the pastor saying, well, just remember the things you love the most about him now, you're going to probably hate later. And, my dad told me once, he said, a woman remembers everything. You may do things right every day, but they're going to remember from 40 years ago. And when I get in a place that's a tough place and I'm not in the mood for it, it's like I remember every sarcasm from the very beginning, and I'll just rail on it. And, it's not a healthy way. But my granddaughter told me once, she's like, if you got on TikTok, Grandma, you'd be a millionaire if you just posted everything he says every day. And it's silly little things, like it's just, they're just silly, things that I know. There's, example, I have a car that has really bright lights, and they're really bright, like people flash their brights, but he gets in the car, and if we live out in the country, whatever, deer might be crossing or whatever, and if I don't turn the brights on, because I can see just there's not that much difference, if I don't see him, he's over on the other side saying, he's like, man, I didn't realize our bright lights, we need to take the car to the shop and get the bright lights fixed, instead of just saying, hey, you might turn the bright lights on, or man, I hope there's not deer jumping out. He would just make these comments, and it just kind of builds up. And it's funny, I've gotten so used to it, and our kids were raised with it. And every once in a while I hear, them, try and, flip back. But luckily, I kind of, like through times when I know Mark has actually hurt somebody's feelings, I'm like, hey, you better call that person back and tell them you're sorry, that you said it that way. And it just becomes, something, like I said, it becomes a habit, and you never know when it might hurt. And I'll go, another example, it like tore our family apart in one instance because we were on vacation with a family member and playing a game of skip-bo, over a game of skip-bo, but Mark had picked on his sister, a little bit during the day, just a little bit. And anyway, she got upset with one of his, sarcastic remarks and got up and left the hotel at 5 o'clock in the morning and hasn't spoke to him since. And it fractured our family because of that. And so, like, I, remind when I hear him sometimes, I'm like, hey, be really careful. And so when he retired, it's like his railroad friends were so used to it because he was like that with him that they were sending me sympathy messages because I was going to deal with it. But, I've learned how to deal with it, but I also know he has a big heart, a really big heart. And so, I'm able to deal with it, but it is something that can make an impact in your life. So, Chris, I'm going to turn it back to you for your comments.
Well, I am glad that you had so much to share about this subject, because sometimes the chapters hit you right between the eyes, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to work in this area of my life. I need to put some effort into this, and man, I don't know that I can really come across as any kind of help to anybody else, because I need so much help in the department. I also am just very playful, especially with people that I'm comfortable with, but oftentimes it does offend, it does cause problems, and it's something that I've had to put a lot of work into. And my wife, she will give me a hard time about it. She's like, hey, that came off rude, and I'm like, oh, and kind of have these little bickers about it or whatever, playful, of course. But at the end of the day, you're like, man, she's just being sensitive, and then you get out into the real world, and you see it have an effect on other people, and it helps you grow at home, or it has me anyway. It's like, oh, now I see. This is what Sarah's talking about, type thing. I know in I work outside the home now on a volunteer basis about 20 to 30 hours a week as a youth pastor, and Sarah and I do it together. But the pastor's wife up there, she's a very sweet lady, very wonderful lady. And, you know, when you're in a new environment, a new work environment, you're trying to build relationships, trying to get to know people and stuff like that. Well, my problem is I kind of hide away the sarcastic playfulness, as I call it, which but I kind of hide it away until I'm like comfortable. That's like the intimate me, you know. It's not the public me. So after a couple months of working there, and I don't even remember what the details of the situation was, but basically I was comfortable enough to mess with her. I think she was cooking lunch for us that day, and I just said something silly about something. I don't even remember what it was, but I was just like joking. But it came off as not a joke, so we had to talk about it a couple days later, and she's like, that really hurt my feelings. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And it's confusing and challenging for me because it, like I said, it's that intimate side of me. It's that side of me you get to see once you know me more, and then people don't like it, and you're like, oh crap, you know. So it is a challenge, but it's something that being in situations like that, it helps you to be aware of it. It helps you to start growing and learning in that area. And to be honest, that's where I am. So the only advice or help I can give in the department is, you know, if you're getting feedback from a loved one or someone close to you about it not being the most positive part of your personality, listen before you get out in the real world and say something to somebody that is a little more challenging or difficult to deal with. And again, all that got fixed and all that good stuff, but it was a learning curve that I wish I'd rather not went through with the person because I didn't want to hurt them. It wasn't my intention, and not knowing how they were going to handle it or something and then just doing it anyway was definitely a bad choice. So anyway, Patty, that's all I got to say on the subject. I see there's quite a bit left here in the Little Things That Matter challenge, so I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a good thing to, you know, to go over. And one more thought, you know, my dad, you know, said to me years ago, he said, the subconscious mind can't take a joke. And so when you're doing that, sometimes you know, really have to think, you know, are people going to understand what you said, and think about these words. But the challenge today says, here are a few tips to help you break free from the destructive habit of sarcasm. Start noticing the reaction of the victims of sarcasm. What are the immediate consequences? The victims may act like it was okay, but watch to see if they get quiet when somebody changes the subject. This awareness alone will be a powerful motivator to change your own behavior. Think before you speak. Use a filter and consider how your words will be received. Apologize to people you may have offended with sarcastic or cutting remarks. Tell them you are working to eliminate sarcasm from your speech. Enlist a trusted friend or family member who is willing to enter a sarcasm-free zone with you. Agree that you will hold each other accountable by letting the other person know when they have been sarcastic. He says sarcasm is often hurtful and offensive to both the victim and the listeners. Though sarcasm may seem funny at the moment, the results are neither comical nor temporary. So I think, you know, it's a good subject to take note on, and that's what we have for the day. So, Chris, I'll let you open back the line so that we can say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, because I was so successful at closing the lines earlier. I'm teasing. There was some of that playfulness. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great job.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Have a nice day,
guys.
guys.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.